Hello.
Hello, Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes, so we still have a bit of time.
Okay.
Hello to everyone who joined in the last couple of minutes. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Tiago will be joining us soon. I hope you can hear me well and see me. At least Elizabeth already said she could, so very confident there.
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Awesome. So I already have a few people who texted me saying they're a couple minutes late, but Tiago should be here. Hopefully should be here soon. And we're going to get this started. Very excited. I always get very excited about the Lunch and Learns. It's, even for me, it's an amazing opportunity to learn. There's so many different ways of doing product. And I've been lucky to have a lot of really interesting people joining the last couple of months to the Thursday sessions. So I'm going to ping Tiago to make sure he joins us soon. I hope that the pace of Monday was adequate. I can't promise that we're going to go any slower during our next Monday sessions. But normally the next sessions are a bit more dynamic. I get to do a few more exercises, get to break you guys into different rooms to test the exercises that I have and see how at least I run product with my teams. It's going to be a fun one. So I'm just going to try to ping Tiago here to see if he's having any logistic problems joining. And of course, confirming he's not here. He's not here yet. Welcome to everyone who just joined. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for Tiago, who might be having some technical issues joining us. Hopefully he'll be here. Hopefully. Otherwise, I'll find a way to backfill the session, but I'm very, very confident that everything will go well. We're also planning to end this by 1:30, 1:40 max. So won't steal too much of your lunchtime. And we have a couple of questions, like a lot of questions. Hopefully you have a couple of questions prepared. Tiago is already joining. Tiago.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Tiago, how are you?
Sorry for the
no
delay.
worries.
It was another meeting.
No worries, no worries. Always happens. It's completely fine. We're already having a lot of people joining on the session. We also have a few people joining in the next couple of minutes. How are you?
A bit
Busy.
crazy. A lot of things happening. You will see next week.
Oh, I'm so excited. You guys are going to announce something.
Something, yeah. But
you're getting you're getting everyone on edge. Like, oh, we're all going to be seeing what happens and what we're going to be announcing next week. Super excited. So you're in Porto right now, right?
Yes, at home. Working remotely for a year and a half almost. So, yeah,
How has it been the transition to remote in Hub? Well,
it has been. It's quite. I think it's in the beginning. It was quite amazing. Like the productivity. It was like I think it was also related to the pandemic. You know, everyone went home and no friends, no nothing, just to focus on doing the work. And actually, for some cases, you have to say, guy, a lot of Slack. No more Slack. You know, like is and. I think as things got a bit normal, I think for the people that were already at the company was okay, and that it was improved a lot. The productivity. I do believe that for youngsters and people that are being on board is a bigger of a challenge, because they don't have the same culture. They don't have those moments of coffee, etc. That also where culture informally is created. So I think this is what is missing the most. We are opening a new office probably in January, so then we are going to change. Also thinking about office space in these terms, what it looks like. It's very tough. It's very tough.
It is. But yeah, I completely agree. The bonding that is missing on the day-to-day and those in between the lines, everything becomes very transactional over Zoom calls.
Exactly.
It's tough. All right, so let's get this started. So this is the first session of our Lunch and Learns for the September cohort. So welcome everyone. Today we have Tiago Craveiro here with us. He's going to introduce himself. I always let my guests introduce themselves because I don't want to say something that either I shouldn't or it's not correct. So I always give them the stage for the first few minutes to introduce themselves. But I admire a lot Tiago's process and progress and everything he's done, both at Hub and also his previous startups. He's a builder, and you'll see based on his presentation. And then we'll jump straight into a few questions. The goal of our Lunch and Learns is we have two goals. One is for us to learn how people in the industry are doing product, and to also see how different product is across different companies, different verticals, different ways of doing it, but also to use it as a sounding board for everything I'm bringing on the Monday sessions, and to confirm that I'm bringing you proper content that you can apply in the day-to-day. So Tiago, first of all, thank you very much. Welcome to the session. I really appreciate you dedicating a bit of time. I know you're busy, and if you're announcing something next week, I can only imagine how busy you are. So I want to start with asking you to introduce yourself. Tell us like what you've been doing and why should everyone here in the call, and we have more than 20 people here, listen to you and learn from you and trust all you say.
Thank you, Andre, again for having us, and congrats for the program. I'm a huge endorser. Actually, I have two people from my team on different cohorts. I don't know, but they are applying too. So yeah, I think it's amazing what you have been doing for the community. So keep on going, and hopefully I will try to also bring some content and help as I can. So a very small intro. So I'm an industrial engineer. So I'm 30. I basically, whenever I finished my master, I opened my first startup. It was on digital health. It was a digital studio where we founded Knock. You probably know a doctor startup that is also getting a very good view at this point. And then in parallel, I opened also a hub. So basically, I told my parents that I didn't want to go to consultancy, so I was applying to McKinsey and Deloitte, etc. And I said, I don't want to go. And they say, you are crazy. And eventually things turned out to be okay. But at that point, it was a very difficult decision. But yeah, so industrial engineering, a lot of, if you don't know the course, very interesting because it mixed up engineering with business. So it's also a bit of what product managers do on daily basis. And yeah, so basically I've been doing as a chief product office and then on the last 6 years, the role of leading the product team at the hub. A lot of challenges, a very B2B company business, but a lot of interaction with the end consumer, so B2B2C. So it's very interesting because you can have all of that, also internal products. So I have our internal teams also using software. We develop a lot of software for our internal teams. So I think I can bring a bit of that context and how to manage that complexity when you have a business to grow. And yeah, so basically Hub is 70 people at this point. We raise a couple of investment rounds. Not much I can say, but next week we'll let know a bit more on our story. And yeah, so happy to be here. And also I want to make this as interactive as possible. So make your questions. It's easier for me to don't give you just the normal stuff. And yeah.
Okay, so first of all, yeah, I'm looking forward. I think what you guys are building, which is it's quite similar to what my company's building, but for different verticals. So I do admire your progress there, and I've been learning a lot what you've been doing. And as Tiago said, I do welcome everyone to leave questions on the chat, and then I'll bring you to the stage contextually and interrupt my own questions and make you or allow you to make your questions to Tiago. So Tiago, I generally start these conversations with a theory and ask you to either prove my or at least tell if you think I'm right or I'm wrong. So my theory is most founders take a long time to create a proper product management organization in their companies. Often they rely on a founder or on the founders for way too long to be the de facto product person, from a PM to the product leader. Do you see this happening often? Am I right? Am I wrong? And what is for you a PM? How does a PM sit in an organization? And how do you see this role impacting your company?
I really agree with you. I think it's sometimes further than what it's needed, and I think it's because there is no previous experience on doing it. And you know, when you are creating your company, it's like your baby, and you don't give your baby out, and people get too proud on that. But what happened is there are people actually that know how to do better products management than you, and sometimes is that what you can bring a lot of times is a vision. You know, something that is, and sometimes when you are creating is not clear enough, and how that vision then breaks down to what the product looks like on those stages, you know. So what you look at a product when you are just starting with the first 2-3 customers is completely different from when you are scaling up. And as you know, this type of products that is two-sided, you know, you have the suppliers, you have the customers, and you have two type of business to run. You have to take decisions over what your product look like. And I think then you have the execution. And what happens is when founders want to control everything, then they jeopardize the execution. They want to be very, very on top of everything, because to be sure that is that direction, but then it goes out that you cannot do everything. And then all the teams are just waiting for your decision, you know. So you don't, you create that sense that you are the guy that knows how to call the shots, and everyone is just waiting for that. And that is why I think you are right. Sometimes it takes longer than expected, and that relates to what is product management. And actually, at Hub, it was a bit easier because we had a CPO as me since the very early, and that is very different. So already very structured in that way. But for example, we didn't have a CTO, and that creates also very stress because you have to take decisions, and sometimes you take those decisions to get the product out and to test it and to get your users. But then if you don't have the proper technology around it to then scale and know when you are creating legacy, when you are not, and those decisions that you need to make, you need to be a very good peer on that. And sometimes it's difficult to find your founding team all the roles, so that is why I think it's very important that you know where you will sit and what is required for you and what will be required for the rest of the team. And then I will link that to the product management. And for us, and you know me for quite a while, I do believe that a product manager should do the end-to-end. So there's no way, no other way around. You should be on top of the discovery on those needs and opportunities, and then deliver that with the proper execution team. So if you control that, you can be very much execution focus, and you can deliver a lot of value, and you can create that is a mini CEO of that domain. And I will get back to that, is that sometimes it's difficult to define the domains. So what is the scope of the product manager? So for example, at Hub, if a product manager is just focused on acquisition, that means that all initiatives and opportunities that goes to the OKR of acquisition, so the goal of getting more customers, need to give them the tools to control the opportunities, go align that with the sales team, etc., and then executing them with a tech team. And this design of organization, it takes time to get there. It took us 6 years to do it, and I think still we don't do it as I would like to be done. Should be done, but yeah, in the beginning it's very messy, and I think that is why you have that founders going to the execution, trying to get everything else, and that creates less space for the product managers to do their proper work.
So I'm going to pick up on two words you mentioned, founders, and exactly the last part about going into the execution, and the part of takes time. One of the biggest challenges I've seen in my career is when there are founders who are very both impulsive, but also energetic, they're passionate, they want to get their vision accomplished. But at the same time, product requires an amount of processing and an amount of time and an amount of security and understanding in order to execute and not waste. How do you balance this, especially being a founder, but also being a product leader? Do you have any tips, any hints on how to get this to a healthy equilibrium?
It's like there is no golden rule, like, and I will just end up that when founders they try to do the product manager work, even though they don't want to do it, but unconsciously they are doing it, is that product managers don't fail, and you'll just learn doing the job. And you say that very often. If you don't try it, if you don't use it, and you know that team, that solution is very bad, if you don't have remorse of what you have built, you don't learn. So that is the problem when founders get to the job that should be done by other team, but other teams don't evolve. So then when they need to take decisions, they are more confident that they know how to do it. So yeah, it's a very difficult balance, I would say, mostly when things are not well structured in the beginning, as they supposed to be, because you are like, I will use a lot of this type of words, but when you are trying to get your first customer, what is the business model? And that changed a lot. When the first year you think that you are selling something, but then you are learning and you pivot, you change a bit. And to have an organization that is changing towards that, what should be the vision, it's difficult to sometimes get the teams the right time to learn and to get this equilibrium. At this point, we have achieved that. So of course, it is a different stage of the company that gets time when we onboard new product leaders or product managers or even juniors. They take time to take those decisions, to learn, to fail, because we are not used to that culture. In the beginning, you don't even have it. So that is why it's difficult to give you a golden pill for that.
So you mentioned that earlier in probably Hub, this probably happened. Majority of companies, like the first year you have an idea, you have a business model, then it changes because you learn new things. You're in a very tricky space, logistics plus fashion plus fulfillment. So it's a hard one. I bet you have some interesting war stories from building Hub, whether from the product side or the business side. Care to share any that taught you a lesson, especially as a product leader?
Yeah. One of the things that when we started, we have this big vision, and I will be very simple on this, but what we're trying to achieve is we want to link suppliers. So if you imagine e-commerce, well, the goods that you buy, those are produced somewhere, they need to come from somewhere, stored somewhere, and then shipped to elsewhere, and what we imagine that flow, that physical flow, should be digital. And when you are starting, and this is normally the startups and the rule of startups, that you focus on very small specific problem and then you expand. Our vision was not that. So our vision was actually to bring value to this full visibility. So you don't have to use different tools to manage this, you use Hub. The problem is that you don't have that product, not the first year, not in the second, on the third. So how you select those pieces and in the end have a valuable product. And in terms of war, so if you take this vision and then you need to take decisions on what to execute, is like the blanket problem. You either cover your foods or your head. Something will be. So what we learn is that from that war, that you use, I would call it, duct tape solutions. Sometimes you will not be proud, sometimes you will not develop it, but you just do the heavy lift. So for example, we use a lot of outsource or even use other products, other startups that we integrate just for that purpose. For example, tracking. If you imagine the message or the email that you receive from your customer, from the brands that you buy goods, we started with our tracking experience. It was so tough to support it. Then we kill it and basically integrate with an external partner. And by getting traction there, eventually in some years, we will probably get a new solution there. But we knew that was not where we should focus our small resources, because we don't have all the resources in the world. So I think from that war perspective, we need to take those decisions on duct tape decisions. And the problem with the duct tape, and this is very careful, is you need to know that it's a duct tape, and duct tape will turn out to be something that needs to be changed. And this process is where you get fights with the tech team, because they don't like this. They just want perfect things. So I think this is one war. And then I think, and probably Andre, you have already suffered from this, is basically when you get a customer that is 10 times, 20 times your customer base, and then you need to know how you make a proposal for these type of things, because imagine that when you make a proposal to a customer, that will require you to have 5 times the number of people just to onboard them and support them. And I think those are very tough decisions to make, because that can collapse the business itself. And we had we had one time, and now I can disclose this, that we have H&M coming to us and say, we have to open a new brand in US, and we were just focusing in Europe. We want to open in US with 10 warehouses, and we want your tool to be there. So make a proposal. And we, okay, how you just reframe this? At that point, we bring out a very big logistic partner. That's also our investor is Maersk, and we tried to pitch out a solution. We were on the top 3, but it didn't go as we planned. But yeah, so those are award decisions. should we do it or not? And as you can imagine, a lot of resources was just deployed just to make that proposal. And when you are just 30 people, it's kind of fun, but also very war
Very hard.
environment.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So I picked up a few things, but I'm going to bring João to the stage because he has a question related to part of the story that you just told. João, you want to ask your question?
No, so it's not to interrupt the reasoning, and thanks for what you're sharing. No, I was just wondering, like once you killed that feature, was just the gut feeling, or use some type of process data like metrics to decide like what you should kill or substitute by an outsourced thing, like any criteria or like let's say type of reasoning that you use to decide those matters.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely, that's a very good question. Thank you, João. Basically, we use two things, like we are evaluating our value proposition and how our customers perceive our value proposition. And we understood that there was already very good solution that will match the need. And in the end, it was offering a solution for their problem. And it doesn't matter if it was an email branded by Hub or any others, so I think it is basically when you have a very good, and it is a very good point, a customer management team that is not only just hearing what the customer is requiring, but also trying to figure out from the value proposition that we are evolving, what are the critical, and there is a Maslow pyramid, what are the major core needs of that customer, because you know that if you deliver that and the others, you find solutions for that. That is a good way to go. So is that, and because we knew that there was other core that if we were not the ones providing it, the customer will not feel that value on us. So is a matter of that. In terms of metrics itself, you have the NPS, and we break down the NPS on why you recommend Hub or not, and what you would like to also look on that perspective. And again, that is just to end up on B2B is much easier because you get, a cohort of customers with a different some profile, and you can ask, you can have a very deep connection with them. If it was B2C, it was much difficult because you have to have critical mass to.
But the flip side of that, it's like finding like an equilibrium of guys that want to like comment and want to help you developing your product. At the same time, some of them, they want a finished product because it's a B2B solution, so they can't like be experimenting with their business, right?
That is true. That is true. So that is why, for example, we normally onboard smaller customers with that purpose. We know that the economic value is not that much, but we know that the profile that they have eventually in the future could turn out to be what is the actual core target that we are at this point doing. So, and with them, it's not that big of a problem to try out because there is not that much, but yet it's still, you can jeopardize, the business. You can just pitching a solution and in the end, it doesn't look that good. But they know that we are a startup, and they also are willing to work with us because they know that we are going to bring a lot of new tools, and that is also the spirit that you need to have on your customer base.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, João. So Tiago, I'm going to pick up on two themes that you touched on your last answer. The first one is tech team, and the other one is the emotional management, especially when things like those prospective customers break. So I'm going to go to tech team first. You mentioned that often having to build product with duct tape, especially early on, creates whether it's tension or stress or clashing with your tech team. And that's something that PMs have to manage. Not a lot of PMs realize until it's kind of too late, they're there, that they need to manage that relationship. They need to make the tech team understand that we're lacking resources, we need to continue going, and we need to build stuff that oftentimes seems it's gonna kind of break. How do you do that? And how do you include your engineers in your discovery process?
Yeah, so I will start to the second part, and then I will lead to the other. Actually, our end-to-end process when we are at this opportunity discovery phase, we try to get our engineering leads to the stage, because it's very important that they know why this opportunity is coming and what is the framing and the scoping of it. And sometimes it's easier for them to understand. It doesn't make sense to get resources there and then translate that to the team. So so basically we have what we call a Kanban of where we follow up the opportunities, basically with 2 or 3 milestones. A lot. If you guys go to the Teresa book on continuous discovery, is very good. And basically you have in the beginning a lot of research from the PM, knowing and scoping in what is the opportunity, the problem, needs, and etc. But then when we come back with possible solutions and high level possible solutions, that is where we get this engineering lead to help us fine tune. Okay, should we go internally? Should we go externally? Because, for example, our engineering leads also have this perspective of what these external teams can leverage our expertise or not. So this is where they should, as early as possible, and you understand me, as early, because you don't want to jeopardize their time with stuff that they don't bring value. So whenever we are an opportunity and we believe that that opportunity is interesting enough, engineering leads should pick up, help us to fine tune those solutions. T-shirt sizing, we do a lot of effort, not just in terms of story point, but what is the effort? Is this 2-3 sprints stuff, or more than 6? Just for us to know, okay, this opportunity will take a lot of engineering time. We need to scope in or scope out things, and then as that opportunity translates to a solution, and those solutions enter what we call the normal agile Scrum process, that is where engineer already have the context to explain to the team why we are opting out to this type of solutions instead of others. So this relates to the first part. The product manager needs to understand that engineering have a specific way of looking at things, and they will not want to do stuff with bugs and etc. So they want to do very good software. It's basically, if you want to go to a sculpture, an artist, for them, it's what the building software looks like. But then you need to understand, as Andre was saying, sometimes you don't have the time to do everything. And if you tell them there is stuff that if you don't do it, anyone would be able to do it, in order for you to focus on that, we need to overseeing or let it go some part of the software. And that is where you have to have very good engineer, some experience on engineering leads, because they get that feeling, and also the capacity to explain.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that you end up actually managing engineering emotions and relationships more often than actually think, sometimes often more than thinking of features and what to build, which is a particularity I didn't know until I started doing product, which is fun.
Exactly.
So talking about emotions, one thing I learned is that the majority of things that PMs tend to build tend to fail. And that's part of the process. When I say fail, it doesn't mean that is a complete failure. Might have just failed on the expectations, and maybe you just built up a lot of expectations, and even if it worked, it didn't work as well as it could. And you gave an example on the H&M, which probably was a very heavy process for your team, and you had to build stuff, whether from a business side, but maybe from a product side. How do you manage emotions? How do you manage the team's emotions when stuff doesn't go as well as they wanted to? Is this something that pops up in your company? Tell us a bit about managing emotions.
Yeah, so I think it's like we need to be transparent on what that type of stressed situation is bringing to the company. Of course, when we are at a startup, it's easier because people expect this sudden change, and they also get better in terms of this and energetic on this type of situation. But when we approach, for example, this H&M case, we basically it was a learning experience that it was one of the best learning experience that we had, because in 2 weeks we needed to structure all of our processes, product interfaces, etc., to explain to in a proposal. So it was basically everyone on the company explaining what we are doing and documenting it so that the sales team can present to the customer, because it was a very detailed proposal. So you can imagine they want to know what is the process for managing incidents when an order is stopped. So they wanted to know everything. And of course, we didn't have that structure because we were just on the go. And that is was very good, because imagine that having tech guys in small scrum teams, small squads, just trying to structure that. In the end, we didn't close the deal, but the overall company has improved the quality, what they knew about the company, but how they know that what is the quality of work that we need to do in order to be on that stage. So it was basically, guys, there is H&M that is like the top of the customer that we might have interesting on what we are doing at this stage. So this is a validation, a strong validation. So of course we didn't close it, but in the end, the spirit that emerged from that, it was very good. Even for people that were not so connected with the sales, it was important that anyone, even the tech guys, need to know we need to sell this stuff to customers, and that is tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. And people get excited just on the prospect of being able to close a client that big. One of the biggest lessons I got was that when an opportunity like that shows up, use as much of the opportunity to rally up people and show, look, we're building something amazing. We have people that are this big or this important looking at us. It matters, and people get excited about that. And often a lot of product leaders tend to round those discussions in very small circles, while they should just open up and make people realize that what they're building is impactful. So you talked about Teresa Torres, which is, we're going to actually talk about this next week on the discovery session. So you're already introing me to the next week, which is amazing. And you talked about discovery, about opportunity, solution mapping. Run us a bit on how you and your team at Hub run discovery, especially because you're B2B and we have a lot of people here who work in B2B companies. What processes do you use to understand what to build and what to bring to your roadmaps?
Okay, I will just, before just going there, I just want to give a very important aspect of what a product manager looks like at Hub, is that it either needs to know about business or way of what this opportunity needs finding, know that what the customer wants, but be very good at the technology behind it. So you need to be ready to discuss technology, not code per se, but the solution that you are wanting to build. Because if you don't do it, either you don't have the trust from the tech team, because they will feel that you don't know what you are asking, and this happens a lot. So when guys that think that that integration is just 1 week, because it's not that tough, but they don't know the reasoning behind it. They didn't look at an architecture, and this is very important, because for us, for you to walk your talk, you need to know what you are talking about. Doesn't mean that you need to code Python, but needs to know that you need to know what software looks like and what architecture looks like, because you have to be on those conversations. Otherwise, tech team will do that role for you, and the solution will be very, very poor on that sense. Okay, so just a small preamble of what I'm going to tell next is that then. So how we manage this discovery, and very, very short logic on how we go from vision to strategy and then opportunity. So what we use, and so we bring from our value proposition. So getting digital solution for e-commerce. What is our strategy? Expansion in Europe, have warehouse in Europe. And then with that business orientation, we do it what we call a 1-year plan. So from our vision, our values, etc., we then try to define some pillars or some drivers for how that vision would look like in 1 year, and what will be the focus areas on that year. And with that focus areas, we then just shortlist that to 1 or 2 for the quarter. Okay, so with that business outcomes, so for example, increase warehouse expansion and warehouse footprint in Europe in 30%, or close more X deals. With that, we then relate that to what we call product outcomes. So how me as a product manager know that having more warehouses will impact my roadmap, and what is the solution that I need to implement. And that is where, so with that perspective, what we call the senior product leads on our company. So we have one on that domain. So that I explained that we are organizing domains, so capabilities, not in services that we provide, is more on capabilities. So we have what we call acquisition and retention of customers, and then what we call warehouse expansion and retention of partners on another way. So we have these 2 domains, and within these domains, these 2 product leads need to come from these business outcomes and translate that to product outcomes. And how that looks like, basically, for example, the guy that is responsible for the warehouse expansion needs to know that in order to increase the square meters in capacity, we need either to get better with our current partners, so improve our software with them, the value proposition of our software with them, or basically turn our API to connect to warehouses much easier. So we need to know that there are several partners that want to work with Hub. So, and that is the type, this is where we translate those business outcomes to product outcomes. And with that, the product manager within that domain, for example, warehouse expansion, picks that and starts generating business opportunities and product opportunities with the business leader of that domain. So we have one responsible for the warehouse expansion, and the product leader of that domain needs to create those opportunities, to research, and that research has the help of what we call the product associate. So we use what we call the duetto. So every product manager has an associate product manager, like a master and an apprentice. And normally I see that the juniors are doing the scrum and the other guys are doing the rest. What we try to do is basically getting them to do small chunks of the full end-to-end. So what happened is this associate product manager is with this opportunity phase, trying to do some part of a research, scoping in the opportunities, and then that is presented to the engineering leads so that they can decide what should be the opportunities, and with the business, product, and tech, they take decisions on which are the opportunities worth it to then create solutions. So it doesn't make sense to lose time on ideation on opportunity that, for example, on tracking is not worth it. Guys, we are not going to develop it. There are 3 guys that already do that. We don't need to integrate. We just use them. So opportunity in, no development, opportunity out. So those type of things is very important, because otherwise, sometimes you are just doing ideation of solutions for something that in the end you have lost product management time, business time, tech time, and then is on backlog, and someone say, this is not worth it. The value is not there. So we lost this discovery process until the execution so much that that is a very, very painful loss for the company. So this is this discovery part, and the opportunity, what this opportunity looks like, is basically going with the business team to defining what are the needs that, for example, warehouses want, raise like a list of opportunities, one pager. So we use a lot one pager, executive summary of what is the scope, what is the opportunity, what is the need that, or the pain that we are trying to uncover, what are the goals. So with that, what we improve by solving those. So very short list on that. And with then, if it's worth it, we basically do a more research. So there is already competition doing it, how they do it, there is a partner that we can do it. So have a lot of context on this. And then just then with the business, we have this first sign off. So it's worth it. Let's do ideation. Let's see if there's a solution. And with ideation, we normally came with 1, 2, 3 at the most solution type of that. And with that, we take the decision, a second decision. Is it worth it to do the backlog? So the designer time, etc., just go if needed after we decided that there are some stuff to do. Of course, for example, designer, and this depends on the type of solution that we are building. If we need to understand that we can do some prototypes with some customers to understand if the solution A between B is better or not and solves what is expected as assumption. So designers come in on this ideation if we are talking about an interface type of product. It's a very important part. We use a lot of APIs, so non-visible solutions. Okay, so very automatic solution, and this is very important too, because the trio that you will see a lot in designer, product, and tech sometimes is not that clear, and that trio can change depending on the type of solution that we are building. I think I extended myself. Sorry for that, Andre, but
No worries.
sometimes it's difficult to.
Yeah, it was a long question.
Sense.
It was a long question, and I agree. First of all, like I'm glad you touched on the point of the associate PM. We talked on Monday about me, at least personally, preferring that the PM covers a wider area of touch points in the user journey of building product, rather than siloing as a PO, a Scrum, etc. So you cross-checked something I mentioned on Monday, and a lot of what you mentioned we're going to cover on the next Monday around opportunity space and the solutions and product outcomes and business outcomes. So I think it's perfect, and I can see the continuous discovery habits there inspiring a lot of your process. So I want to bring João, the second João. So there's a correlation with João's asking questions into the stage. João, you want to ask your question around the engineering team here to Tiago?
Yeah, it's related to what you were saying about walking the talk and like understanding engineering. Like, how do you track or monitor the efforts of the engineering team? Like, how do you know that they are doing a good job, or they are like relaxing, or if they are not doing enough just because I didn't ask enough and they didn't say that I didn't ask enough? You know, how do you do that balance? It's mostly based on motivation and trust, or do you use any tools to do that?
Yeah, so I think first you need to trust. So you can use a lot of measurements, etc. But as you know, Scrum is very like one velocity for one team is completely different from the other. It's more about the process. What you as a product manager needs to tell them is each sprint we need to bring value. I don't care how, I don't care why, but we need to bring value, and that creates the pressure that the team. So it's not the tech team that is developing it, is the entire team needs to bring value each 2 weeks, and that changed the frame. I don't care if they need to be the ones, or we need to be the ones as a team that wants to develop things as fast and simpler as possible, so that we can then learn from it. And that is very tough. Okay, so sometimes we are talking, and I know about this. Iteration is very good, but sometimes you need to create foundations, and there are sometimes that you create foundations, and foundations are not so that iterative, because, for example, for us, imagine an inventory management system, like managing stock. It's like what we call a ledger in a bank. So it is not something that you build on one sprint, but the principles around it needs to be there. Otherwise, we'll spend 3, 5, 6 months building something, and in the end it's just rubbish and very, very painful to track the success of it. So yeah, I think it's a matter of changing the shift. The entire team needs to bring value each 2 weeks, and that is the metric that they will be evaluated for what they do. And again, if the outcome of, or if the metrics that they are, or the OKR that they need to find, that they need to find results to match, they are not there, is because the whole team didn't develop either. They didn't find the right opportunities, or they didn't get the right solution for those opportunities. So it's like you need to change the frame to bringing value each 2 weeks. I don't care if it's 10 story points on or 50. That is all a matter of organization within.
Yeah, thank you.
But it is a great question and a great answer, because often lack of trust and necessity of seeing what's happening in progress and being very at grass level as a PM within the engineering effort, design effort, something that consumes so much mental space on PMs, where you could actually be focusing on something else, discovery, opportunity, ideation. So transitioning from I need to see what's happening to I trust what's happening and I want to see the future is definitely something I commend. So Tiago, in sake of time, I'm gonna ask a last question. It's gonna be a two-sided question. The first one is to reflect a bit on what you'd consider maybe not the biggest, but a big mistake you've done in the past. A lot of people love to talk about achievements and victories. Let's talk a bit about the mistake you did. I have a full book of mine. And second is, if you were entering the product world today as a new PM, as someone who wants to transition to product, what would be the advice you'd give that younger self? So first part, biggest mistake or big mistake. Second part, advice to your younger self.
Okay, so I think in terms of what we have in the most meaningful experience here at Up, I think I already talked about. I think we should have done have more experience on technology in the beginning. So me and Luis, we had some technological driven, but there was not that engineering, core engineering. That's because on early stage, if you have that, you can get the vision there, and then it's much easier to hire and get people on board on that process of sometimes you have to have duct tape, because we need it. It's easier. So I think it's a mistake, but it's something that we just didn't think about. It was that important, but then you pay the debts of that, and that links to too much weight on business and less on tech in the beginning, because like we were growing like crazy, but the duct tape start to look, you start to see where the holes are and the water is coming out. That is perfectly normal. Okay, so it's normal that the boat is not beautiful. Like it's expected to be that. Just need to be faster to solve it. And I think that balance between product and tech, as we this thing that I say, you need to trust the team, but that is a culture that takes time, and take the right people in the early stage can help you to execute faster. And at this stage, we were able to find that equilibrium, but it's something that takes time and this stuff. For the second part, I think being a product manager is very tough. The completion of skills that you need to have, and it's amazing that, and the day to day can be completely different. But I think I will just do an analogy. As an architect needs to know how buildings are being made, I think product managers that create solution needs to know needs to have some proficiency on those type of things that you are going to build. So having this tech or data, I'm doing a second master in data science, because solutions will be a lot of AI and etc. So you need to know what those things are. Doesn't mean that I want to be a data scientist. I don't want it to be, but I know that I will need to link with data scientists to do my job properly. To whenever I have a problem for my customer, I'm the one that I'm imagining how that possibly could be solved. So you need to know that. So be very tech savvy, like go find it, go to that refinement that no one wants to be, but go there, just listen. And eventually in 1 year, 2 years, you get used to those things because there are some logic around it. It's easier for them to do your job. And then I will do the second part. So have those type of skills and proactivity to learn from your customers, for your internal customers. So be able to create relationships, because people will let you know more stuff than you know, and then you need to crunch that information in order to understand the business around you. So I think no tech, like, don't be afraid of that. If you want to start coding, it's not that difficult. It's not expected to be an engineering or a coder, but it's like you have to get your hands dirty on that part. And the second, I think it's easier to get people there, but still to be able to listen and then crunch that what you are listening, actual meaningful things for the company that you are serving.
Yeah, I agree, especially in the part of understanding what you're building, just for the sake of getting people to trust your judgment and trust that you're a good proxy of them, not in the decision on how stuff is going to be built, but that they can level up and down with you on the details, and that you're not just there to fill up the space. So there's a final question. I'll allow Gonçalo to bring up the final question in a 2 or 3 minute answer, because I don't want to take more than the expected time of the session and Tiago's time. So Gonçalo, you want to shoot your question for a short answer?
The answer, I think it should be rather quick. So do you believe it's also useful for engineers to know a little bit, at least, about product management? So but the other way around.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a two-way street, you know. Yeah, they need to know what the hell our day-to-day is, so that their job could be easier, you know. So everyone has to play a role, and it's important that you know how to play it and what is expected, or what is the things around it. So yeah, definitely. And again, this, and finally, and to finalize, this relates to, if you create the domains and those domains are somehow defined, and for a tech guy, the OKR is the same as the product manager. They will know that for acquiring customers in China, those are the prerequisites. So they need to know that for them to be evaluated, they are not being evaluated for the story points or the quality of the software itself. They are being evaluated for the outcomes that they are providing to the company. So this is the mindset that everyone needs to be aware of it, and that is why, for example, I do believe Revolut is a very good example. They have the mini CEO running small chunks of value for Revolut, and that creates a massive growth.
Chicken Kaiser.
I'm just going to mute you on there. That was a fun one. At least we know he's getting lunch now. So by the way, just to add on top of what Tiago just said, I also believe in a product engineer culture, where engineers are not here to build software. There's already way too much software wasted in the world, not solving any problems. We're here to build products. And if you create that layer of understanding, then yeah, product management is as important as your ability to review code. So for sake of time, because we're past 1 p.m. 40, Tiago, really appreciate the time you dedicated here to answer all our questions, my questions, the questions of the audience. As you know, we're recording this and we're going to share this only with the participants internally. I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much. Super insightful. Got to take a few notes and learn, as I do, because this is like our second or third time we're talking and Q&A. So I always get to learn a bit more. So I hope it was fun for everyone. I appreciate you putting your lunch here. We're going to see ourselves together next Monday, and next week we're going to have Mafalda joining us. She's a design manager at OLX. She's going to give the design view of things and probably talk a bit about what Tiago also mentioned around opportunities and testing and ideation. So again, thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much, Tiago. It was a pleasure, and have a great end of week to everyone.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you very much.
Everyone, if you have any questions, just
connect on LinkedIn with Tiago. Yeah, feel free to shoot some questions. Is available for that. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you.